good afternoon or evening. This is Atmospheric Alex here. Welcome back to another severe weather outlook and discussion forecasting video. Yes, we're finally done talking about space weather and we can return to normal here. Don't currently have a thumbnail here yet. I'm going to be a bit busy this afternoon, but later on the video, hopefully one will be prepared. And of course, we're going to start off today's video like we always do with technical difficulties. I just recorded 10 minutes and I forgot to switch the scenes, so here I am again, back at it, right? We're going to be talking about a slight risk, a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here, for portions of, the Texas Panhandle into eastern New Mexico, portions of Amarillo, Clovis, Plainview, Lubbock, right within there. A couple of supercells may develop later on this afternoon to the evening into the overnight hours, especially near Amarillo. We're going to be watching that closely. And a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk further on off to the east, and we're not expecting much out of that. For our main risk, we're talking about potentially a chance of a weak brief spin-up tornado, especially any boundary interactions in eastern New Mexico. Your wind, just a 15%, and hail, we could definitely see us be upgraded to a hatched risk of hail in future updates here. Maybe some 2-inch diameter hail cannot be ruled out entirely across those areas. For tomorrow, we're talking about a slightly larger slight risk of severe weather here across Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and portions of New Mexico there. And then this very large marginal risk cutting through all the way up into the northeast. That's not going to do all that much. It's only a 1 out of 5 after all, so we're not expecting much, maybe a couple strong storms here or there. But in this main risk area here, we're going to be talking about the potential for some damaging winds, very large hail, especially, I would actually have to say, in this area right within here. Definitely could see an extension of your hatched risk here for 3 to even 4-inch diameter hail. We'll get into that in the deep dive here shortly, which sounds familiar because I just did that. Again, things are just not working for me this morning here. And we are talking about a 5% risk of tornadoes here within 25 miles of a given point for the Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma Panhandle, into Kansas, and even Colorado trying to sneak in there. We've seen some Colorado magic here. I think yesterday and the day before, I think it was just the day before, we did see a potentially significant tornado occur there. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see with everything tomorrow evening. So then as we move into Friday, we have a larger slight risk of severe weather here, encompassing a very large area here. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, portions of Colorado, Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, and Georgia. All going to be talking about a damaging wind and potential hail risk. We could even see a brief spin up or two. We'll just have to wait and see for more details. But definitely looks like maybe a more significant day up ahead. And then for Saturday, well, it's the risk that never ends, right? Just like a couple weeks ago, we're going to see this etch into a Dixie Alley here. Again, we're going to be talking about our, potential hail, damaging wind risk, and even some tornadoes cannot be ruled out for Saturday here. Across your gigantic fish here, kind of looks like one, doesn't it? Trying to find its way back into the ocean again, where it needs to be. All right, time for some timings here as we move into today on your HRRR model. This is not a exact forecast, but this is what the radar could look like later on. We're seeing some storms, some strong severe storms popping up here across central New Mexico, going on through into around 1 to 3 p.m. Mountain Time. These will begin to move further off to your east as we go into the evening here and intensify just a little bit. Before becoming potentially more messy, though, again, this is just a model, so don't take this literally. Going into Tucumcari here, going in around really 6 to 9 p.m. Mountain Time tonight. And again, maybe another roundup here further north. Again, we're just going to have to wait and see reasons why the marginal risk goes further north. And I'd also like to note your potential strong storm risk across southern Texas as well. But going later on to the night, we're seeing Amarillo potentially getting a nice round of severe supercells here, going into around 9 to 12 p.m. Central Time tonight. Not a forecast exactly. Couple more cells trying to fire southwest of Midland, Texas as well. But again, we'll have to see. And that supercell becoming a little more invigorated south of Amarillo, and we're going to have to see how organized these things get for a large hail risk. Again, a hatch risk cannot be ruled out for some hail into tonight. And then another round there, going to be talking about a lot of severe weather across Amarillo tonight, I'll tell you what. Your parameters here, well, we're not really talking about all that much. A bit of a boundary interaction could occur in eastern New Mexico, which is where a greater tornado risk could be realized. That your nice 2% there would verify nicely. Areas out ahead of this definitely wouldn't be talking about too much, just some speckles of light greens and yellows, so definitely not a really favorable environment there whatsoever. As we go into tomorrow's risk, which could definitely be more significant here, be already talking about some supercells here moving into Abilene, possibly into tomorrow early afternoon. But as we go later on to the evening, a big explosion of supercells become evident here. Look at down here across Alpine, Sanderson, Texas. You got some messy clusters going on down there around 6 to 9 p.m. Central, and a pretty big supercell with very large hail on this particular model south of Lubbock here. This would be your 3 to 4 inch diameter hail risk here, which could definitely verify if something like this were to occur. And again, you could see it taking your right motion here, and yeah, very significant supercell. And look at as we continue throughout tomorrow evening, look at that, more supercells popping up across Lubbock, Hobbs, Abilene, Midland, Texas here, trying to move closer to San Angelo here in around the 7 to 11 p.m. time frame tomorrow evening into tomorrow night. So definitely have a way to receive warnings, turn on your emergency alerts, and crank your weather radios on high as it could be a bit significant. Again, damaging winds, very large hail with those storms for sure pushing on through. Then another round across the Texas Panhandle later on into the overnight hours. How about Oklahoma and Kansas here? Well, again, as we go into tomorrow afternoon to the evening, supercells begin to fire up across southwestern Kansas here in those areas. Those don't look too significant, but that could change. Again, this is just a model. And going later on, it definitely does change. Garden City, Dodge City, Liberal, pretty good supercell there. And look at that, congealing up into a line pushing through Oklahoma here. And again, could be in the very late hours of tomorrow night, 1 to 5 a.m. Central, as we are talking about it here. And then again, this nice big line of storms here with 60, 70 plus mile an hour winds, one trying to form behind it, two distinct lines pushing through Oklahoma here, so definitely going to be a widespread risk for severe weather. What do your parameters look like for tomorrow? It's going to be a mesoscale day, so things could get very interesting. Look at this. Going to tomorrow evening, a very sharp boundary begins to set up here across portions of New Mexico and Texas. If we do have a storm that fires off this boundary, or could latch onto it, definitely could not rule out a brief, strong tornado in that environment. There with your red colors and even a couple hot pinks trying to sneak in there. So yes, going to be very conducive for severe weather. Look at that there. And that really continues here. Again, more cells trying to form off of that boundary. If I was a storm chaser, I'd be trying to set up in that general area there. That is your heightened tornado risk. Then everywhere else, even across Kansas, you're definitely going to be seeing some scattered yellows, oranges, and you even could see a couple red colors in there, indicating higher parameters. And going throughout the night in Oklahoma, that really begins to die off, but then maybe reinvigorates. But now as we go into Friday, here's what we're talking about. Pretty big supercells. Look at this. This is the NAM model, so please do not take this seriously just yet. Colorado here and the New Mexico area in Texas. Big old supercells firing there. I would say a couple words, but I'm not going to say them yet because, again, this model is not fully accurate. But definitely going to be talking about risk for severe weather. Anything out here, definitely damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes are all possible with those supercells that could develop. And further off to the east, you have your morning round of storms that dissipates quickly. Look at this here, further off to the north of Missouri. Nice little supercell firing up there. Again, this is not a forecast, this is the NAM model, so don't take it fully seriously. It has biases of its own. But then some supercells possibly firing up in portions of Arkansas, potentially going into, Friday evening, it looks like. Further east, because remember, this is a very long risk for severe weather. Going into portions of central and east Tennessee here, look at this. This model in particular showing a bunch of strong storms and even some embedded supercellular structures as well. in that as well. We're definitely going to be talking about some strong winds, small hail. And again, an isolated tornado cannot be ruled out in this environment here. And these storms could turn more severe as they push further east. But, it's definitely been uncertain. I'd like to note kind of where everything is setting up here. You got your storm here. Out in front of it, you've got your anvil cloud. So think of how tall your storms get, and those clouds really billow up into your atmosphere. And with your stronger wind shear, aloft can kind of push your upper level clouds out ahead of these storms, causing a massive shading effect. So your temperatures may begin to drop a little too quickly out ahead of these storms. It could substantially limit storm energy. So as these storms do explode in the plateau, these may not survive into the valley as strong as they once were, but still strong winds, small hail, and even a tornado risk cannot be ruled out. But maybe a more notable severe weather risk in your plateau and in your mountains as well. And especially these storms out here into West Tennessee, into Western Kentucky, really got to watch out for those as they exhibit rotation. Definitely a tornado risk could exist there. What are your parameters looking like? Well, as we go into Texas and Oklahoma, look at this, bit of a boundary here setting up on Friday. Definitely could be talking about, look at those cells there taking up a very favorable environment. So tornado risk, couldn't even rule out a brief strong tornado in that environment, yet especially there, look at that. Talking about a value of a 14, but again, just a model, not a forecast. And we also can't forget about Arkansas as well. Very heightened parameters. The NAM model tends to overdo wind shear. This is likely why you're seeing some pink colors there. I do not expect that to fully verify, but still, colors don't exactly matter in this scenario. Supercells are possible, and if they form, could be quite significant. All right, going further off to the east into East Tennessee, Central Tennessee here. Look at this, a pretty large area of yellows and even a couple orange colors here that we're really going to have to watch out for. So a slightly conducive environment for severe weather could become realized, which is why your slight risk extends into that area. And then your supercells out here, a pretty favorable environment as well. So going to have to watch out. Again, very large risk here for Friday as our supercells begin to become underway. For Saturday, because it just keeps going, could see some storms in the morning in Oklahoma going into Arkansas and further into Dixie here. And then in the evening here, could we potentially see yet another boundary-based event here across these areas? Well, we're just going to have to wait and see. Further east on Saturday, you just see a bunch of thunderstorms here, strong to severe storms. There's really not a defined answer to this mess just yet, but just know, again, could be impacted by damaging winds, some hail, and even a brief tornado. For your parameters here, yeah, I mean, for sure, we're going to be talking about a favorable environment. In your oranges, reds, and hot pinks here, for sure going to be conducive for significant supercell growth and development, and even some mesoscale convective system growth and development here, where we could see a line of storms blast off to the southeast here, through the southeast U.S. And further east, yep, again, like I said, definitely a little bit favorable, and we could see a couple strong storms going all the way to the coast here. Are going to have to watch that as well. Let's quickly review here with our GEFS supercell composite here. Like I said, could definitely be talking about some severe weather here across New Mexico, very low risk. Going on into tomorrow, we see some of your yellows and oranges here that could definitely be a lot more significant here across Texas Panhandle, portions of New Mexico and Oklahoma as well. As you can see, some of those colors coming quite vibrant there going into the night. And of course, on Friday, look at that large orange area. If supercells form, could definitely become a bit more significant in nature. And this, of course, extends further east throughout the night into Saturday here. This is maybe a bit overdone, but boundary interactions here could could result again in significant supercells in your oranges and reds there. And pushing further off to the east, well, it's really the same ordeal. Into Sunday, we're talking about a very similar pattern, and this really just continues. Monday, same thing, very packed winds, so tornado risk definitely evident. Tuesday, Wednesday, and we begin to see our shift north of severe weather here. Your flow a lot stronger going up into the Dakotas. So finally, a normal June-like pattern could begin here for your Dakotas. There's still some stuff in the southern plains. That should really move north. Yeah, look at that. Potentially more severe weather in your northern plains and central plains going much later into the month here. Not a forecast, but something I've been noticing on the models. Alright, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Trying to keep things a little bit short here, but I did kind of ramble on a bit. Regardless, though, we have seen a bit of severe weather over the past few days. I'd like to note that. Especially yesterday, we did see a little bit of a small-scale tornado outbreak across Oklahoma, so that was something to note right there. And across other areas as well. Can't forget about Kansas City, Norman, and Davenport all having close calls with tornadoes, especially Davenport with that stronger tornado. So certainly been an active couple of days. Now, that said, please be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to my little corner of the weather community, share with friends and family on social media, and just stay weather aware over the next few days on the severe weather. Not expecting much in the tropics quite yet. The thing in the Gulf isn't going to form, so if anyone tells you it is, please, I would recommend staying clear away from them. I'm sorry, some people right now are just out to get clicks and attention. That's just how it is at this time of year, and they are using the GFS model very far out, saying there's a risk for a hurricane in the Gulf and you all should prepare. You should not just yet. Just keep an eye on the forecast in the National Hurricane Center. All right, have a wonderful night, everyone, and stay weather aware.